This is the sixth and final lesson of Process Grid Component Training. And in this lesson, we're going to take the bin search and bin validations done in the last two lessons so that we can add a bin and lot entry fields to our process grid. So let's get started. I'm logged into the project Process Grid Component Training 1. In this final lesson, we're going to do a copy of Lesson 3. Lesson 3, Expected Receipts. And we're going to call this Lesson 6. And in this lesson, we're going to call this Adding Bin and Lot Entry Fields. We're going to keep these values as we had them before. We're going to add a couple fields to the SQL. Last time we had to add a field to do the received. Now we need some empty fields to do bin and lot. These are just text fields, so that's how I'm going to define them. We'll test it. And we have now some empty fields at the end. We've already defined our filters. We need to update our button. Now we have this flat bin entry value. And I'm going to make that the bin. And a flat lot entry, I'm going to make that the lot field. So now we have the bin field and lot field added. So before, when we failed in the horn, we now have these fields to enter. I'm going to add a new button. I'm going to do the multi-level item view so we can go look at our data. And we just happen to have a multi-level item view that's in the system. And I just need to look at that by item. We'll add that button so later on we can see the transaction that we did. Now we want to add the bin and lot. Now I'm going to decide that I want to search on the bin. So remember we did the search. So I'm going to go look that lesson up, which was bin search with passing values. And you'll see here that now we need to define these as input fields. I'm going to pick them both from the view. And we need the item number. And we need the location, which is the move to location. So this is going to link that grid view that we did as a lesson directly to a lookup on the grid. So we can actually look our bins up. Next thing we want to do is use our validation. And that was another lesson we did. And we'll see here it's lesson 5, validation for bin. In this case, the first two fields come from the view, and the last field is going to come from its own input. So the first field needs to be the item number. The next is to move to. And I don't need to define any because this field is going to be whatever I enter in there. And then this will give me 3 values to the index to that data query, and if something happens, so we just enter our own error message, you'll see the variables that come back. A data query like this can actually bring variables back to be used elsewhere. Now we need to decide on the enabling rule. Because we only want to enable this, I'm going to make it false. But if the multi-level, let's see here, multi-bin flag is equal to y, which remember we brought this back in our joins, and I talked about why I needed to have that in our join so that I could determine validation rules. I don't want to enter a bin for something that doesn't require a bin. So I set the default to false, and then this criteria reverses that. You can set this to true and reverse it the other way. If I could set multi-bin to no. So I like to start off with everything being false and then set criteria to make it true. So it's false and it's validated as true. Now the lots can be, usually are unique on each receiver. So we're not going to have a lookup on the lot, we're not going to have a validation on the lot, but we are going to have a rule on the lot, an enabling rule. Because we don't want to enter lots for things that don't need lots. So we have a serial lot flag. And we're going to make that true if it's a lot. So that is either an L or an S in the database. Now we're going to run our Now let's move all this over as entry fields together. Move all this over. We're going to look at order 6200. We'll look at horn. Horn has been and lotted, so both fields are open. And I'm going to look up the bin for horn. We'll use bin 100. What happens if I put in something that's invalid? Failed to find bin. So I can either look it up or I can enter it. And we're just going to shoot a lot number into that field. I used a little wedge scanner and shot the lot into that field. We'll select it and we'll receive it. This time it was successful that this lot here went through. We'll look at the multi-level drill down for horn. We'll look at open POs, 6200 and receivers. This is the last receiver. So we'll look at the inventory tricks record and the serial lot, and this is the item in the serial lot that we received on that particular. You'll see the serial lot SUR was the one I shot in bin 100. And that completes our lesson on our final review of how to build a transaction grid with search lookups and validation fields in the process. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video tutorial, and I encourage you to move on to the next video tutorial in this series.